Certainly, all of us are focused on the tragedy for the people of Ukraine and what it means for their future. But at the same time, as investors, we have to think about what this means for our investments and what it means for the Canadian economy. Higher commodity prices are likely to persist even after this war is over because we do think that we'll enter a Cold War relationship between Russia and the democratic world. There's not going to be a likely kiss and make up moment as long as Putin is in power. And so the issue is, to what extent can Canadian companies actually fill in the gap for goods that Russia and some of its allies sell to the rest of the world? Canada and Russia don't trade a lot with each other, but Canada's exports do significantly overlap some of what Russia sells to the world. In grains, the world is desperate for greater supply, but Canada's ability to grow more will depend in part on the weather. We had some drought conditions out west that look to persist. There are some commodities where we do have some opportunities in the near term to expand output. Those would include things like uranium, for example, as well as potash. Russia and its allies, important sources of both of those products, and some opportunities, I think, for Canada to sell to countries around the world that may be uncomfortable for the foreseeable future in relying on Russia as a source of supply. Ontario is looking at supporting more mining opportunity in the province, and Canada does have some longer-term opportunities in the mineral sector, again, to replace some critical minerals that Russia has been a supplier for and the world is uncomfortable about. Of course, the headlines have all been about oil and natural gas. In the case of natural gas, unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to export LNG to the rest of the world. The major project on the West Coast is still under construction. And in the very long term, this might give an incentive for that project to actually be upscaled. Again, this is something that we won't see in terms of the economic benefits for a few years, but it's a possibility. And even in the case of oil, again, a longer term story, but the balancing act that Canada has to play between environmental concerns and also supplying energy from a politically safer country than many parts of the world that sell oil to the rest of the world currently are. That's certainly something that could come under consideration. In the US, there's certainly, again, some political discussion about easing some of the restraints on the US oil sector to try to get more oil out of the American ground to replace some of what Russia sells to the rest of the world. So certainly some opportunities, some near term, perhaps in things like potash, some quite longer term in the case of LNG for natural gas. But foremost in our minds still, of course, is the tragedy that is going on, the negative impacts of that on global business sentiment, certainly on Canada's trading partners in Europe, can't be overlooked, even if there are potentially some silver lining behind these very dark clouds that we're seeing now.